Hey guys, welcome to Traditional Bow Hunting Wilderness Podcast. This is Jason Samkovic, and we are on part 4 of our 8-part series here on preparedness, self-reliance, self-sufficiency. In this part, we're going to be talking about heat. The hardest one for people to really understand, yet it is probably the one that kills more people in northern climates than any other one in major disasters. This one is huge. If you live somewhere where the temperatures get cold, you have to be able to provide heat. Now, this one obviously is how people have been doing it for many generations. But many people cannot do that anymore. Houses today are not built with wood stoves. They're not built with wood fireplaces. That is becoming a rarity rather than a norm. And with the majority of people being in cities, you don't even have access to wood if you had it. So if you have this and you live in a rural environment, we live in a rural environment, or we're in a great place to have it, but we don't even have that. When I built my house, we did not even think to put those in. We have an electric fireplace that gives off a cute little thing, and it has a little bit of heat when we turn the heater on in it, but it is absolutely pointless and worthless. If I was smart, I would have had one of these put in, but I did not. Now, I do not want to spend the money to put one in. I had to come up with other alternatives. If you have a generator, like we talked about last time in the energy and power one, you talk about a generator. Yes, it will work if you have a generator, but again, generators require fuel, and I don't know how much of that you'll have or how long you'll be able to go. But a generator is not a bad option. Will work, but also a generator is a mechanical device that can and will fail. They are notorious for failing, breaking. They're not built very well. I don't care who makes it, what you think, how great you think it is, unless it's a $10,000 diesel generator, there's a chance it could die on you in a heartbeat. I don't care at any time. So when you're risking your heat, a generator is more than just a bonus thing, okay? So for me, I'm not even a fan, even though you can do that for a little while. I think that there's some better precautions need to be made other than just banking on a generator. This one, if you have access to wood, is absolutely best. If you cannot do that, such as many of us, there is another alternative, okay? This one, last resort here, we'll talk about this. Speaking of campfires or wood stoves, if you are like me, and I have a wood stove that I run in my wall tent on my hunting trips, I can take that wood stove and I have the board set up. I have an actual fireproof board that fits in my window, and I have the pipes. I had to go buy them and get them in the 90 or the 45 degree, but I can actually set a board down in my kitchen and or in my living room by my kitchen. I can put a board on the floor that's fireproof. I can set my portable wood stove that I use for heating my wall tent up, and I can put that pipe up and angle it out my window through a board that fits where my screen is on my window and extends that out there long enough for the support that comes down and holds the pipe. But I could actually heat my house with my own wood stove through a window type setup. Is it legal? Probably not. Is it safe? Yes, I would be okay with it, but is it the best system? No, but it is, since I already have that wood stove that folds down and packs up. It's a cylinder stove that I use. It's made by Cylinder Stove, and it's part of my wall tent setup, but I could use it if I needed to. So if you have something like that, it's an option. If you're looking to, if you're in an area like me where you're surrounded by woods and you want something like that to be a possibility, you can pick up some of those camp stoves for not very much money. $100 for a real cheap one, up to, I think mine was $250, $300 for mine. And again, I got it because I use it for my actual, for my wall tent, and I camp in there, 7-8 weeks a year. I'm in that wall tent. So I love it for that setup. But I do have, since I had it already, I did go through and get the components I need to be able to make it a home wood stove if necessary for me. So that is an option. Now, for 99% of you guys, we have tried kerosene. We have tried everything that's out there. I'm telling you, this right here is by far your best option for pretty much 90% of you guys out there. Is going to be a Mr. Buddy Big Buddy heater. Mr. Buddy makes different sizes. The Big Buddy is the biggest one they have. Runs on 2 of the green 1-pound propane tanks, one on each side of it. Will run for a few hours that way. You will probably get, if you have 2 tanks in there and you run it on low, you'll probably get 8-10 hours. I don't remember the specs are on the box. I did reviews on this. If you search back, I did a review, I think about 2 years ago, on this very same channel on that Mr. Buddy heater, and I have all the specs in there. Now, That's great, but you also, Mr. Buddy has a hose system with a regulator that you can buy for that will plug into that, and then you can run it on your barbecue 20-pound tanks. That's a beautiful thing. So you take that Mr. Buddy heater, you buy that. I'll have links down below where you can find it anywhere, and then you also have that hose. I'll have that stuff down there for you too. And with that setup, you can heat a lot of space. We use it to heat, we have 4 of them. We use them to heat my camper. I use them to heat my sunroom. I have one in my garage, and I have one brand new in a box that I haven't even opened yet. These things are worth it. They're about 100 to 140 bucks, depending on where you find them at, or if there's any sales going on, but they are worth it time and time again because they are indoor safe. You can use them inside. This room I'm in right now, we have heated this for 8 days with no power here by basically closing the doors off, and we basically just lived in this. We're in a big room here, but we could have everything we needed, and we could run that thing where we would only have to turn it on about every 3 hours. We would turn it on, put it on high for about 15 minutes, get the temp up, put it on low, leave it on low for another 15 minutes, and then turn it off, let it cool down for a couple hours in the house as the insulation did its work, and then fire it up again. So it works fantastic. It is an incredible heat source. These Mr. Buddy Big Buddy heaters, they do not fail. I have 4 of them. Well, 3 technically. One's still in a box. But they have never failed me. They have never let me down, and they always work. They're indoor safe. They have O2 sensors in them, so if the oxygen level gets too low, it turns itself off. If you knock it over, it turns itself off. They are the best option for a heat source for you to have if you do not have a wood fireplace or a wood stove in your house. Now, I recommend having more than 3 or more 20-pound tanks. So if you already have one for your barbecue, or most people have 2 because they know that one could run out at the worst time. So most people already have 2. Pick up another 1 or 2. Okay, you want to have these, you know, I prefer having 5 or 6 or 7. You know, I like having these tanks. This is not a cheap option because you're going to be looking at, let's just say you're 150 bucks for the hose and the heater ish. I'm just saying, and then you're looking at another 100 bucks for a couple of tanks and stuff like that too. You're looking at a $250 deal. But heat is so important. If you live in an area where the heat can go out, when the power goes out, you lose heat. This is mandatory. It is much better to spend a couple $100 and have this set up to keep you safe in that environment than it is to turn around and try and do $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 to get a wood stove put in and if you live in a city where you don't have access to wood, you're in trouble there anyway. I promise you, you're not going to stack enough wood in the corner of your garage to get you through what you need in a wood stove, you know, for a 10-day or 2-week-long power outage in the wintertime. Okay, you won't do it unless if you're in a city, you don't have the room to do it. So your best bet, I do believe, is going to be something like this. Now, with that, you're not going to heat a 2,500, 3,000 square foot house with that heater. Okay, it'd be stupid to even try. But it will allow you to section off your house, section off areas, use it in the bedroom when you're in the bedroom, spend most of your time in an area that this thing can heat. Now, it can heat a lot of space. We heat a 34-foot camper with a huge slide, big camper. I don't know what the square footage of it is, but our camper is pretty big. And we can heat that whole thing with this Mr. Buddy heater on low, in 10-degree temperatures and keep it nice and comfortable in there. So understand, this thing is very powerful. It works like a champ. But you would want to reserve the power that you can with it. Use it for a while, turn it off, let the temps just kind of do this, you know. So you're shooting for 60 degrees. Here's what you're kind of going for. So you run it till you hit 60, and then, you know, so you're here. You run it till it hits 60, let it fade out till it gets down to about, you know, 40 or 45, let it build itself back up. You're just, in that way you're getting, you know, so it's, you know, on for a half hour, off for 1 hour, on for a half hour. You know, that kind of thing, or whatever your insulation is in your house. But you can really conserve the amount of energy. And if you have 3 or more, 3, 4, 5 of these tanks, you will be okay with this setup. And like I said, the chances of this thing failing you, very slim. I do not know anybody that has one that had this break or not work for them. Now, if you were to try and cut out this hose and try and do it from the single tanks, you can do that too, but you will require so much storage space and you will spend so much money on those little 1 pound green tanks, it's not worth it. This is mandatory. If you're going to go this route, you need that hose. This is going to be huge. Now, I still think it's important to have the 1 pound bottles on hand as well too, because you can run them for all sorts of different things, and I can run them for my lanterns, I run them for my cookers, my stoves, I run them for all kinds of things. So it's not a bad idea to have, you know, maybe 12 or 25 of the 1 pound cylinders. You want those as well too. Have those stored somewhere, but having 3 or more tanks of this, not a bad idea. And that Mr. Buddy heater, I have not yet found anything that's going to work better for 90% of the people out there that need the security of heat in order for them to survive where they are. So if you don't have those, check this out. Like I said, a link down below if you want to see what it is. They make smaller sizes, don't bother. Go straight for the big dog, especially if you're planning on using it for your house or camper or anything like that. This is the one that you want. It's worth spending the money on. And this is what you're after. Get the Mr. Buddy heater, get the tank for the hose to let you use the barbecue tanks, and make sure you got a few of those extra tanks laying around. It is really your only option. I don't know of a better option. I know some people are going to say, well, you can build a homemade stove out of a 55-gallon drum, and you can do that. There's a lot of things you could do, but reality-wise, for people that are in urban environments, don't have access to burnable stuff, this is going to be your best bet for a long-term, up to a month and a half if needed, kind of a heat source. But realistically, 10 days, 3 tanks will get you by 10 days probably, even a little longer, even in the coldest part of winter. But me personally, I would think 5-6 tanks would be even better. So, and don't store those tanks in the house. Garage, shed, somewhere out there, stack them behind your shed, whatever it is. But you don't want to store those in the house, obviously. But this system, hard to beat. So there you go. That's my best advice I got for you on heat.